Trade deadline season is officially underway. The Seattle Mariners have brought in Josh Naylor from the Arizona Diamondbacks for the low price of two top 20 prospects, a AAA reliever and a high A pitcher, 21 years old, who has a 5.5 ERA so far this season. That's a very low price. Naylor's price was never going to be very high anyway, but I'm surprised how little he ultimately went for. Now, you are getting two top 20 prospects, so they are seen as two guys who do have some sort of future here in the league. The Mariners have one of the better farm systems in the game right now, and so the Diamondbacks peel off a couple of pieces from a good farm system, and now they're going to be looking at Eugenio Suarez. The Mariners articles have already come out about the connection with Eugenio Suarez going back to the Seattle Mariners possibly. Yankees, I'm sure, will have something to say about that. The Cubs have kicked the tires on it. Cincinnati Reds have kicked the tires on him as well. But his price is going to be extremely higher than what Josh Naylor went for. I wonder if this is a trade that kind of gets a couple of pieces that the Diamondbacks really had value on. That if they don't get the trade for Suarez going to the Mariners, they at least got a couple of pieces from their farm system that they really liked. So Suarez, to me, still is a favorite to go to the New York Yankees. I think that's just a matter of time until that deal gets done. But we'll have to see as we get closer to the deadline, who ultimately is willing to pay the price. The Yankees, speaking of them, are also looking at O'Neal Cruz of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, we talked about that last night about how they'd have to be absolutely bowled over. But I dug a little bit deeper into it and was trying to put my mind in the front office there at Pittsburgh. Why would I be willing to trade a player like O'Neal Cruz? I need offensive pieces. He's probably one of my best offensive pieces right now and for the future. Why would I ever be willing to move a player like that? Well, much like we've talked about on this channel and the struggles Wyatt Langford has had, O'Neal Cruz has had very similar struggles. I would say even more pronounced. 219 average. Exit velocity is absolutely fantastic. Speed is absolutely great as well. But he's not exactly the greatest defender out there. His recovery speed kind of makes up for a lot of the lackadaisical routes he makes out there in center field. But his bat is absolutely going to come through at some point. The question is when, and will he be able to tamp down on the strikeouts? I still think it's unlikely that Cruz does move. But if I was in the front office there at Pittsburgh, the only reason I would contemplate it if I was getting some significant pieces back. So, for instance, the Yankees were the team that reached out about O'Neal Cruz. I would need Spencer Jones back. I might even need George Lombard back in that deal to make it even worth my time. Schlitter might be a nice piece to help out on the pitching side, but they need position player prospects more than anything else. And I think Spencer Jones can handle center field right now. Jim Bowden was speaking on Foul Territory about how good he is, and he could step onto any major league team right now and play all three outfield positions and be able to do them competently. I think that would give you belief that he could handle center field if you did trade away O'Neal Cruz, and then if you get Lombard or any other pieces from the Yankees, you build the trade out from there. But, still looking in the mindset of the Pirates, why would I ever be willing to give up a piece like this? He is the future offensively for the Pirates here. He is also their present. which makes it very difficult to see this trade actually happening. On the pitching side, that's a lot easier to see for the Pirates. Makes a lot more sense for them to move on from guys like Mitch Keller, Bednar, Santana, among others. They could get nice prices for every single one of those guys. Prices are extremely high. Speaking of high prices, we've been talking quite a bit about the relievers for the Minnesota Twins, Yohan Duran and Griffin Jax. Well, the Twins have been telling everybody that the price for those two guys, each one of them, they want 2 top 100 prospects back, plus for those guys. Now, do I think they'll get their ask? No. I think you set the bar really high and you negotiate from there. They probably will end up getting a top 100 guy, or at least a borderline top 100 guy, and then probably another top 200 guy. I think that's probably how things will go here. But prices right now for relief pitching, understandably, are extremely high. And now that we finally got the dam to break with Josh Naylor getting traded to the Mariners, maybe we could see some trade activity here over the next couple of days. Sir Centro, Sarah, Redurculus, Theo, appreciate you guys joining us this evening. In case you guys were wondering, I predicted a trade. The first trade would happen today, and certainly it did. Josh Naylor goes to the Mariners to kick off the trade deadline season. Dodgers rule, well, they're a very good team. Even with their struggles so far this season, they're still at the top of the NL. I'm still not picking against them to win the National League, but they're a lot less of the super team that we expected them to be. Injuries, poor performance, all playing a factor in that. But I think the Dodgers will course correct at some point here. Sounds like Trinan is getting closer to returning. Roki Sasaki is over 90 miles an hour now in his rehab as well. They could be getting reinforcements probably mid to late August. But again, it's all about getting to October and winning in October. They don't really care where they sit once they finish the season. As long as they got a place at the table once you get to October, we shall see. Now, I talked about the price for Duran and Jax. Most teams, because of the extremely high price on Duran and Jax, aren't even asking anymore about Joe Ryan. They have figured that the price is just too extremely high to even consider it a possibility here at the deadline. So I'd put the chances of a Joe Ryan trade almost at 0 at this point, as teams have cooled on their interest in him because of the high price the Twins are setting for their relievers. Let's see here. Sarah, big win for the Cards tonight. Nice trade by Mariners. How are you, Mike? It was a big win for the Cardinals. 2 older pitchers that really couldn't get the job done today. Gray gave up, 7? I know he gave at least 5. I'm not sure if he gave up all 7 of those runs. And then Darvish gave up 8 runs in 3 2/3. Both pitchers have seen better days. Darvish is still working his way back into big league shape here, and boy, did it look hot out there in St. Louis today. Darvish was absolutely covered in sweat by the time he was taken out of the game. Baseball ain't easy in the summer in St. Louis, that's for sure. As far as the trade for the Mariners, I do like the trade for the Mariners because it doesn't cost them any of their real prospects here. They lose a AAA reliever who was just making it to the big show, had pitched in a couple of games so far this season, but he probably goes into the Diamondbacks bullpen right now because they need arms, period, with injuries and poor performance. They need somebody to be able to go out there and get an out for them, and so I think he goes in there immediately. The starter obviously is going to be years away, but I like the trade for them. They get a piece that's got 2 pieces that are controllable, one of them that immediately goes onto your roster and helps you out in the bullpen. So I do like the trade there. As far as the Mariners side of things, they've needed a first baseman pretty much for the entirety of the season. The Donovan Solano signing didn't exactly do what they hoped it would, and ultimately they still had a hole over there at first base. We talked about O'Hearn being a nice fit. We talked about Naylor being a really good fit, and ultimately they go after Naylor. Now, the interesting thing for me here at the deadline is that they didn't necessarily break the bank to get this deal done, absolutely, but Jerry Dipoto is notorious for just trying to do just enough to get into the wild card, and if it doesn't work out, you throw your hands up in the air and do it the next year and try to keep building up that prospect base and making your overall team better from top to bottom, from the high A level, low A level, all the way up to the majors. That's kind of how Jerry Dipoto works. He's done a lot of trades. That's how he kind of builds up the value in his organization. He does a great job building up this farm system out there in Seattle. But at a certain point, you got to push your chips to the center. And that's what Cal Raleigh was saying a couple of years ago is what they should have done. Instead of trading Kendall Graveman, they should have added. Well, they make no mistake here. They jump out early here ahead of the deadline, about a week away, and they go and make the first big move ahead of the trade deadline, bringing in a first baseman that's hitting over 290 for the Diamondbacks so far this year and solving a big hole in their lineup. So I do like the trade for the Mariners. I think they absolutely win this trade because they're getting an impact piece that helps them right now. Diamondbacks also win here because they get a controllable reliever to help out the very beleaguered bullpen right now. Ridiculous. Thoughts on Royals potentially acquiring Duran from the Sox? Potentially would rather swing for fences and get Casey or Casey for Bubic. Well, I would say Duran is a more valuable piece. His value right now in baseball trade values is 43, 47, along those lines, somewhere in there. As far as Casey's value, I think he's around 10 or 12. Either way, I think both of those options would be great for the Royals. I don't think they have the necessary pieces to get Duran. I think Casey's a lot easier for them to acquire. I think they could do a two-pitcher stack or even just one, sending Bubic or Lugo or any one of those starters in there. I think they could at least form some type of a trade that would work for the Chicago Cubs, but I think Bubic would have to be the player that goes in that deal in order to get Owen Casey. Theo, welcome in. Evening. Appreciate you joining us. How concerned do you think Tigers fans should be right now? What do you think they should end up doing at the deadline? Well, we talked about this quite a bit last night. They dropped all the way from number 2 in my power rankings at the All-Star break, and that was fresh off of a 4-game losing streak. They come out of the All-Star break and don't look any better. Honestly, they fall on their face even more. The pitching looks absolutely terrible this past week. They DFA'd Hernandez, called it part leave. That does nothing for me. That kind of solved their issues. What could they add here at the deadline? Veteran presence in that locker room, somebody to kind of stabilize this the pitching staff first, and then help out the offense as well. Just bringing in a veteran to kind of settle these guys down, because this is the first time they've really been held to those kind of expectations there in Detroit. They played really well for the first 3 months of the season, but since then it has not gone quite so well. But as far as where would I put the panic meter if I was a Detroit Tigers fan? 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. Panic. I'd say you're probably about an 8 right now, because I don't see an end to this right now. You got 4-game series against the Blue Jays. You just lose the first one. The first one is supposed to be the winnable of that group. We had Olsen on the mound. Now you got Tarek Skubal coming up later in the series. That's probably your only other game, I think, in this series that you're going to have a chance to win. So you're talking maybe splitting the series right now with best case scenario for the Blue Jays, or maybe even just taking one of these games. That's just a recipe for disaster right now for the Tigers, because not only are the Guardians playing much better baseball right now, they're gaining ground on you. They're still a long ways away from catching you. I'd still pick the Tigers to ultimately win the division, but it's not out of the question that the Tigers won't win the division there. What do they end up doing? Like I said, get a veteran in there, maybe a utility infielder, somebody Renhefo, maybe somebody who's got some playoff experience, some skins on the wall. If you don't want to go for a Renhefo type. And then as far as the bullpen goes, I would add a back of the bullpen piece, probably an 8th inning setup guy, maybe a 7th inning setup guy. You don't necessarily need a closer there. Vest has been good, but I think they could use another one if they could get one at a decent price. But prices are really high right now for closers. Does Ryan Helsley get traded? Helsley will get traded. It's just a matter of time. Cardinals will be selling. Would Bobby Miller have a high value in a trade? Not a huge value, no. Harley, welcome in. Brandon, Ethan, appreciate you guys joining us this evening. I need Bednar to the Rangers. I do too. I think he's going to be one of the few relievers that's going to be reasonably priced here at the deadline. Felix Bautista, if you missed the headline, is going on the injured list with shoulder discomfort. That basically ends the trade talk around him, which only drives up the price for Emmanuel Clase, who also has interest from the Chicago Cubs. There was more than a few articles that came out today about the Cubs pursuing Emmanuel Clase, and it sounds like Stephen Kwan is getting quite the going over anyway by the Philadelphia Phillies. They might be viewing him as their answer in center field. We shall see. Let's see here. Sir Centro, and who is the Dodgers' top prospect in a trade? Well, if they go for a big trade, Jose DePaula, Zaire Hope are probably their best 2 prospects. Brandon, Jay's going after Cease now and then re-signing. I'm calling it. I would like that for. I would love that for Toronto. Actually, I think he would start probably 1, 2, or 3 in a postseason series. and so that would mean you're getting a piece that helps you win this year. I think if you get a piece like Dylan Cease, I think you're going to have a really good chance to even win a playoff round if you do that. Right now, I'm not picking them for the World Series. They played great. They're my number one team on my power rankings. I'm not expecting them to stay there the rest of the way. They've had an incredible run over the last 50 games, but they need to be recognized for what they've done over this period of 50 games. But, Dylan Cease would certainly raise the ceiling there for me if I'm a Blue Jays fan. Sarah, 5 teams want Helsley. Sean, does Helsley get traded? Helsley will absolutely be traded. His value is not much higher than what Naylor was. I would expect him to go for a similar-ish package, probably a little bit more, due to the high prices on elite relievers right now. But we shall see. Ethan, I know it's just a whatever trade, but he's a switch hitter and he's cheap and a veteran. Ezekiel Duran for Carlos Santana. That's not a bad deal. It'll give you another bench bat, but that's another first base only player or DH only player. You already have Berger, Tellez, Peterson. If you get Osuna, that would be another one. But I just think they have too many guys that fit that mold already, and that really is Josh Smith's spot right now. If this lineup is going right. Now, I would like to see them add a first baseman. Naylor, who I thought was the cheapest of those options for them to go out there and add, they ultimately miss here. Now, remember the year they ultimately won the World Series in 2023, they were going after Jordan Montgomery pretty hard anyway from the St. Louis Cardinals. You know who the other team was interested in bringing him in? The Arizona Diamondbacks. Rangers ultimately won the bidding there. I'm wondering if the Rangers, or Chris Young anyway, as the president of baseball ops now for the Texas Rangers, views this situation very similarly. You go after the bigger piece. You go after a better first baseman than a Josh Naylor here and say, hey, Mariners, we know you're in front of us right now, but our pitching has been better all season long, all aspects of it really outside of our closer. Munoz, you'd probably lean to the Mariners for sure. But I'd say rotation, bullpen have both been better in Texas so far. Honestly, they've been right at Major League Baseball's best all year. They need offense. Jim Bowden has basically been preaching that all season long. Have patience, have patience, have patience. My patience has run out with this team just a little bit on the offensive side. I think this team is improving absolutely, but I would still love to see them add a bat first, second, and third here. But I think bullpen is still going to be their first priority. They're going to go after Bednar, Duran, pieces along those lines. I think they'll solidify that bullpen first. But I think their needs in the lineup now are starting to grow a little bit, but we shall see. All right, Brennan, the Jays did just destroy Fried, Rodon, Ray, and other Giants, quality starter, so I don't think them beating Skubal is that big of a surprise. Skubal is the Cy Young candidate on the AL side this year. Skubal has been very good. That's going to be a tough matchup either way, but the Jays are playing really sound baseball right now. I would not be surprised if they did beat Skubal. It's going to be a great game either way. Ridiculous. If the Royals sell on Lugar Bubic, who do they go after in a buy low, sell high kind of a deal? So you're saying take on a player from another club and see if you can rehab him and make him better on your own team? Jonah Heim comes to mind, but they don't really have a hole at catcher. I don't know. I think that's more of a question for the offseason, though. But I do think they could get a nice return for Bubic. Lugo probably return similar to what the Diamondbacks got for Naylor, is what you would expect for Seth Lugo because of the money due to him next year as well. To replace in the rotation, like if you're trying to replace the pieces this season, Bryce Elder would make sense from the Braves, but they're looking for starting pitching. They've done a lot with failed Braves prospects in years past. That would make some sense, I suppose. Brindley, if Helsley is on the market, he's also a Jay. Cards absolutely love trading with the Jays. They do, but there's a few other teams I think might ultimately outpay for what the Jays would offer. I think the Jays are looking to do something a little bit more impactful than a Ryan Helsley. Would not be a bad fit, though. I think he'd probably be a great eighth inning or even a closer for the Jays if they did bring in Helsley. I think they're looking a little bit bigger game first, though. Don't forget about Mason Miller on the market. I think everybody's forgetting about his availability. I think the A's are basically showcasing him quite a bit right now, and I think there is a trade coming for Mason Miller this trade deadline season. All right. If Helsley's on the market, he's a Jay. Them and the Diamondbacks are the two most common trade partners with the Jays. They are. I'll agree with that one. Mariners to a lesser extent, but you're not going to trade in the between those two playoff teams this year. All right, Theo, as a Jays fan, it's Cease or Ryan. If they don't get a frontline guy like that, just load up on 2 to 3 leverage relievers. I think Cease is absolutely the guy there for Toronto if you can get him. You're going to have stiff competition between the Yankees and other playoff teams this year. Ryan, I just don't think moves from the Minnesota Twins. Ethan, I bet the Yankees get Cease, but just seems likely with Cole out. That would make a lot of sense. I would like that one. Which pitcher do you think the Cubs acquire? I've heard them talking quite a bit about Mackenzie Gore. I think they have the pieces to get there. The question is, will the Nationals ultimately say yes on something like that? Brent, are you guys willing to trade Jones or Lombard if you're getting Cease to the Yankees? Lombard isn't worth Dylan Cease first and foremost. Jones and Cease are close, but you're not trading Jones for an expiring deal. Ben, the Blue Jays, I'm in the clouds. What happened to Toronto? Okay, what do they need? Sorry, your excitement is huge. Well, I'm glad you're excited about your Jays. Blue Jays are playing really well. They're my number one team in baseball right now on my power rankings. To me, I would like to see them add an ace, somebody who can take the ball in the playoff game. I think they have a really good 1 through 5 rotation, but they need somebody at the front of this rotation to take it to the next level. I think they need a bullpen piece. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to add a bench bat to this group as well. But they're a really strong, really sound club this year. Let's see. Sir Centro, no, please don't bring up Jim Bowden and his toupee. There's a reason he's not an executive anymore. You're more knowledgeable than that clown. Well, he does. The one thing I will say about Jim Bowden is he does have a lot of sources within clubs that I think he's hearing things from guys lower on the food chain, not exactly in the room, but maybe around the room for a lot of these teams in these trade discussions about which players they kind of like and which players they kind of don't. And then he extrapolates from there. And most of his extrapolations don't exactly work out. I will give him credit, though, for having the knowledge there, but I wish you'd just leave that knowledge a little bit more by itself and be an actual reporter. But he's kind of trying to make that transition from executive to, talking head. He's been doing this for, 10, 15 years now? But I just wish he would kind of, stop putting his own spin on it and let us get the information first. And then, once he's got the information out, then he can make his inferences from there if he wants. Ethan, what hitter did the Rangers go after now? Naylor was the most linked to Texas. Yes, he was. But Jeff Passan said your boy Osuna to Texas is most likely. I would say that one is more likely now with Naylor off the board if the Rangers go cheap for a hitter. I don't think the Rangers go cheap, though. I think the Rangers really believe in this pitching staff, and I think they're really going to believe in this turnaround of the team basically since the end of May, beginning of June. And I think they're going to go, pretty big here at the deadline. Remember, nobody was expecting Max Scherzer to ultimately end up with the Texas Rangers. And for how much they got the Mets to pay down, that was a very aggressive move. And then you make the trade for Max Scherzer. Hey, you don't need any more starting pitching. What are you doing going ahead and bringing in Jordan Montgomery? They were very aggressive again, bringing in more pitching. Well, they got plenty of pitching right now. I don't think the issue is pitching, especially in the starter side of things. I think they could use an elite closer, absolutely. Prices are extremely high, but I think Chris Young sees this as an opportunity to win this year, and I think he might be willing to pay the piper to get somebody in there like a Bednar, or if he has to give up, say, a top 100 guy, Rosario could be that top 100, 200 guy. The second piece might be a little tougher for him to come up with based off of what other teams might be able to offer for Duran or Jax, but we shall see. As for the bat, I would like to see them get a little bit more aggressive. I kind of floated the idea of the Braves and how, the dream piece for the Rangers would be like a Matt Olson or something like that. With Ozzie Albies' name being thrown out there on the market as a fit for a team possibly in Houston, Olson has 2 years left, even further on Albies' deal, so he's got 4 years left on his contract. Number is very palatable. He is an Atlanta boy, has been there. I don't think he'll be traded, but that's the type of big piece I would expect Chris Young to go after. Now, kind of take that to what other players might be out there on the market and apply them as you will. That's the kind of impact I'm expecting them to try to make here at the deadline. If they can offload Jock Peterson's contract, I'm sure they'd love to do that. I just don't think anybody's going to be a taker for it. But I expect the Rangers to be a big buyer here at the deadline. and kind of surprise a lot of the national media as far as where they're at. I mean, nobody's paying attention to how good they're playing now, and have been for a while. And the best pitching staff in the majors right now resides in Arlington. Could the Cubs trade for Helsley? Absolutely. They're looking for a closer. Let's go ahead and check out X and just see if anything is happening in the last few minutes. Pull up the notifications here. 1 week until the deadline. I love this tweet anyway from the beat reporter for the Seattle Mariners after the Josh Naylor trade. He says, Eugenio Suarez is still Seattle's top priority and being aggressively pursued by the Mariners following this first domino dropping with the club acquiring Josh Naylor. So I don't think it's going to be an easy get for the Yankees to be able to bring in Suarez. I just think they're going to be willing to overpay more than what other teams would be willing to do on a Suarez here. Mariners already know what they've had in Suarez before. He's not quite the same player. He's having a fantastic year offensively. But going back to Seattle, he's already comfortable playing there, or at least been there before, so he's comfortable with the city. Knows how to get around. Be less of a transition for him to going into Seattle than it would be, say, New York, for instance. But the bat is really what plays for him. I think he's got 36, 37 home runs right now. We'll see if Seattle is ultimately able to pull that one off. Everybody's starting to head towards Cooperstown. Ichiro. Wow. One of the best players we've been able to see in our lifetimes, Ichiro Suzuki. Will the A's be selling, and who? They will be selling. I would not be surprised on Mason Miller. In fact, I'm kind of leaning 60-40 as far as them trading Mason Miller. I think he's one of the better elite relief options that's going to be available, and I think it's going to take a king's ransom to get him, but I think the A's are inclined to trade him here at the deadline. So we'll see where he goes. Let us know in the chat where you guys think he will go. Be sure to hit that like on the bottom of the video if you haven't done so already, and hit that subscribe button. Posted 5 videos today keeping you guys updated on the trade deadline, so be sure to turn on those alerts. Make sure you follow us on X, because I think they only send you 3 from any of the channels that you follow. So anytime there's news, make sure you check out our feed, or make sure you have your notifications turned on, and we'll keep you guys updated on everything that's happening at the deadline. You can follow us on Facebook, Upside Sports Network as well. But I'd say Mason Miller is the most likely to move. As far as the big pieces, of course they could do the expiring deals, but nobody really moves the needle like Mason Miller there. I'm sure they would talk about Severino and Springs, and don't look at their ERA. They're playing in a bandbox. That ERA is probably more in line with around a 4 ERA, so you're probably getting a 3-4 starter at best. If you do acquire Severino or Springs here at the deadline, I think both of those pitchers could be available, and the Oakland A's or Sacramento A's, I guess, go out there and add another similar pitcher in the offseason as well. RIP Hulk Hogan, absolutely. You may or may not agree with all of his life choices, but thoughts and prayers with his family on this difficult day. Lost a couple of icons this week. Found out some bad news about another one for the Food Network as well. I won't bring it up because that's a tough topic to talk about on a baseball show, but a lot of tough news. Ozzy Osbourne, Hulk Hogan, Ann Burrell is the Food Network star I was referring to. I encourage you guys, if you guys want to check that out, if you're, follow the Food Network at all, it's a tough story if you want to read about it. Very tough story to hear today. All right, let's get into some baseball trades, though. Rosario and Drake for Luis Arraez and Dylan Cease. Throw in Berger if needed. All right, let's go ahead and pull up baseballtradevalues.com. Let me go ahead and log out real quick because they always throw up ads if I don't log out first. And then pull it back up. All right. Arraez and Cease to the Rangers. I don't think they would need Cease, but we can go ahead and do the trade for you first. We'll do the commentary afterward. Padres. Okay. Let's start on that side of things. Cease to the Rangers. Arise to the Rangers. If you guys want me to do a trade for you guys, please feel free to send it in the chat. Could Ben Brown be traded? Absolutely, if they get a bigger piece. Any idea what time you'll be streaming on deadline day? Like, will you be live all day? Yes, Theo, we'll be live all day long. I've actually decided to even go longer than what I originally expected. I'm going to start at about 8 a.m. We're going to go through the deadline, which is 5 o'clock Central. We're probably going to go till about 6:30, maybe 7 o'clock. So almost a full 11. We may even do 12 hours, depending on how much you guys are paying attention and watching after the deadline passes. But should be a very exciting deadline day. I'm expecting a lot of smaller trades to happen that day, a lot of utility guys to move, a lot of middle relief guys to move. But you're saying Rosario is the first piece in this deal, and Drake is the second one. Drake is now in the top 5 prospects for the Rangers. It's going to be tough to give up both of these guys. $23 versus $8. They're looking for a controllable outfielder, though, in return for Cease. You're not giving them that, so you'd have to include, I don't know, Alejandro Osuna in this deal. The value just isn't there. Could it get there? You throw money on one side or the other. I think you'd have to throw money on the side going to the Rangers. Then it could get close. But I think this would be a significant overpay. I think you'd be able to get one of Drake or Rosario, not both. You get Drake, you probably get a better secondary piece. You get Rosario, you probably get a little less. Although Drake could be borderline top 100 here in the next 6 months. So we'll see after the season where Drake ultimately stacks up. But that'd be about what the trade would look like. If you throw in Berger, that adds $3 million, or a $3 million piece going back to the Padres. Makes it even more lopsided, but gives them a first baseman to take over for a rise there. It just doesn't seem like the Rangers are going to be aggressive enough for a prime trade target. Well, there's not too many prime trade targets this year. This market is really depressed, but I'm expecting some active teams this year. We're not trading Adolis. There is a certain segment of the national media that just won't let the Adolis Garcia rumors die. Now, I did hear one that actually had some legs to it. That would make some sense. And then that'd be kind of a major leaguer for major leaguer type of a trade. There was no indication of what the major leaguers coming back to Texas would be. But the report was basically that the Philadelphia Phillies were the team that were kicking the tires on Adolis Garcia. I have no idea how he would fit on the team. But I could see that happening because it's Dave Dombrowski. He likes playoff performers. He is a playoff performer. Maybe they envision moving one of their outfielders currently into center and then figuring things out with Adolis with the DH spot and right field and left field and Castellanos, or maybe they're going to change up their outfield mix and really shake things up here at the deadline. But the way that the Philadelphia Phillies are kind of wired is to compete, push to the end, and try to win every single season. That's just the way Dave Dombrowski operates. And that'd be kind of the win-now move. I could see Adolis Garcia going to the Phillies. Now, what would they give back that would make it worth it for the Rangers? That's the part that makes less sense to me. What exactly are they giving up that's going to help the Rangers win this year when they do have the best pitching staff in the game? So, still unlikely. I put the trade of Adolis Garcia at 0.1%. I just don't believe in the idea of trading him. He's the emotional leader of the team. He's the vocal leader of the team. Marcus Semien leads by example. Corey Seager leads by performance on the field. He's very, very quiet in the clubhouse. The issues that were raised by Kevin Pillar in his interview on Foul Territory, basically saying how the clubhouse wasn't as one, basically saying how this was kind of a segmented group. They've taken upon themselves to kind of address those things with the young players that have been coming up from the minors and kind of taking them under their wing and kind of addressing some of those problems. The Dallas media didn't really see it as a problem because there was no clubhouse issues. Kevin Pillar just didn't exactly get in with the cool kids yet. And he was only there for a very short period of time. Wasn't even there in spring training. Didn't really go on the road trips at all when he was on the roster. So when exactly was he going to join the cool kids table? I just, for me, I expect to see some big moves here at the deadline. And for the Rangers specifically, it just doesn't make sense to move Adolis Garcia specifically. I would like to see them add a prime trade target, though, like you mentioned here at the deadline. All right, Mason Miller to the Blue Jays mock trade. I can do that one for you, Theo. Fits the Padres. Maybe if you're getting a couple of relievers back, that would make some sense. Send Suarez and Adam back to Texas in exchange for Adolis. That would make some sense. You'd still need another bat now, but you basically changed one problem for another. Phillies are desperate. I mean, this is basically one of the last chances they're going to have with this group as currently constructed before free agency, age start to really wear into them. Let's go ahead and do that trade that you mentioned there. Blue Jays and Mason Miller. Now, they were actually in there for him a couple of years ago. Before he even really hit it big. Okay, so you're looking 30 value. They're looking for starters. So I think Yasevich would have to be piece number 1. I think you could throw Tiedemann in this as piece number 2. You might have to include both of these guys, King and Rojas, in this deal as well. That's an overwhelming return. If you take out Tiedemann, though, Yasevich is worth this trade already. Nah, you're going to have to leave Tiedemann in there. You're not giving up your number 1 prospect. This is your number 2 and 3 that you're giving up here. It's a bit of an overpay, don't get me wrong. But I think that would be the price that we're going to see for Mason Miller here at the deadline. You guys send me your trade ideas in the chat. We'll go ahead and get them done. Does Seth Lugo get traded? I believe he will. I think the Royals are trying to make a real chance at a postseason spot right now, but I think they're going to come up a little bit short. Lugo, I think, probably ends up as somebody's 3 or 4 starter in a playoff rotation. I'll go ahead and post that one. Let's move on to the Wyatt Langford era. I like Wyatt. He just has to start performing. Now, the one trade idea that I have been hearing quite a bit with the Rangers as a right-handed bat, even better than Marcell Ozuna, and with them missing out on Josh Naylor now, is from the Angels. That player, being Taylor Ward, has a year left on his deal. Power numbers are great this year. He's crushing left-handed pitching, which is what the Rangers have had some issues with, building out their lineup against a lefty. He would immediately go into this lineup and be a nice piece for them. Now, what would the Angels want back in return? Pretty much any future piece, honestly. I think they'd want some high-value pieces. I think they would want to start with an elite pitching arm, but I think they might want a multitude of pieces. So if you could hold on to Drake in this deal, send them DeVio, who's having a really nice year, send them Santos as the secondary piece. You're already pretty close to this deal, and I think you throw in one other piece, not a pitcher, but if you throw in a position player, I'm just throwing Morabel in this deal. I think you'd have to include somebody better than Morabel. He's having a poor year. He's going to drop in as far as value, but whatever his equivalent is around the midseason range here, I think this is a trade that we could see. The Rangers getting a right-handed bat. You put Langford in center. You put Ward out there in left against lefty. You have Haggerty as well. Maybe put Haggerty out there in left field and put Ward as the DH. But that's a trade that I've heard quite a bit of connecting Ward to the Rangers. A lot more recently in the last 3 or 4 days. Duran and Carlos Santana trade to Texas mock look like. I can do that one. Do a Cubs mock trade for anyone. I can do that one next after that, Sean. Let's go ahead and do that one that you mentioned there. Duran and Carlos Santana trade. Guardians. They're trying to win a postseason spot. I'm not sure they really see Duran as a long-term answer. They'd probably want a little bit more, but let's see here. Santana. Negative 1.8. Salary of 4.3. Rangers could take it right now. For the Rangers, you send Duran. Literally a value of 0. They finally dropped it all the way down. Straight up deal, that's actually not bad. Guardians save a little bit of money. It does nothing to help them this year, though. Maybe they would do Dustin Harris instead. That would be interesting. Dustin Harris in exchange for Carlos Santana. It's not a bad deal. You'd rather have Osuna? He's been terrible, though. Ward actually has been very productive. 800 OPS, good against lefties. Another year left on his deal. Osuna, free agent at the end of the year, struggling to around a 200 average recently. I think it's actually dipped down to 185 recently as well. But it'll be a very good series, I think, this weekend. A very telling series between the Braves and Rangers. I think it'll be a great opportunity to try to bend the ear of Alex Anthopoulos if you're Chris Young, Fenstermaker, the GM, and just see if you can get the Braves to talk turkey on any of the bigger pieces than Ozuna. I agree with you there, but I just think Ward being able to play the field is a lot more valuable as well. Because you're already going to have a DH-only guy in Jock Peterson coming back here in the next week. 2 weeks probably. He's starting to swing the bat, and he should be back very soon. Josh Sborz, by the way, is throwing pretty well. He should be back very quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back right at the trade deadline. True, I don't understand the hype for trading for Osuna. He's just not that good this year. Let me see if he's playing better recently. I haven't checked in on his numbers the last couple of days, but he hasn't been good for a while. Let's see, what's he at now? 235. I remember it being 238, 239 earlier. It's even gone down. It's now 176 in his last 7, 156 in his last 15, 186 in his last month. Jock play deserves the bench. Well, I mean, he's making $18 million. He's got a player option next year. You're trying to make make that contract worth it. Peterson is a much better player than what he showed in the first half. I would like to see what he comes out of the break with, and just see if he's healthy. If he comes in and produces at, say, a 270 clip with some power, I think that'd be worth it for the Rangers. You got a Josh Sborz autograph. That's pretty cool. Getting the final out for the World Series championship team. That's going to be a good autograph if you're a Ranger fan. Aaron Montel Alcaraz, appreciate you joining us. Do you think the O'Neill Cruz deal is going? Do you think that O'Neill Cruz is going to the Yankees? The Yankees are going to be one of the most aggressive, if not the most aggressive team here at the deadline. I think they're going to be very desperate, is a good way to put it, to add a bat, to add a starter, to add a reliever. O'Neill Cruz is the type of player they usually target. Power, tools type of a player. Don't necessarily worry about the fundamentals of the game, and that's really the areas where O'Neill Cruz struggles. He's the exact type of player the Yankees have kind of built a team around. Do I think they ultimately get it done? I think there's a world that a trade could get done there. I put the chances of a deal there under 4%. O'Neill Cruz mock to Texas lookalike. It doesn't make sense to have both Langford and Cruz out there in the outfield. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You'd have, if you traded Langford for Cruz, that'd make a little bit more sense, but I'd rather have Langford than Cruz. But you asked for a Cubs trade. Sean, let's go ahead and do that Cubs trade. Cubs, to me, are still looking for an elite starter. Thank you for those likes, by the way. Just saw a few of them come through. Appreciate that. Cubs, where could we go? Where could we go? Well, to me, the trade that I think would be the biggest impact as far as an ace right now, based off of the prices we're seeing, has got to be Dylan Cease. Now, if you go and try to get a utility infielder out of this group as well, I think you could get an interesting trade to include Cronenworth in this deal. Now, would the Cubs want Cronenworth? I don't think so. Shaw is playing out of position at third. His natural position is second. Bringing in another guy that plays his natural position doesn't make sense. Trying to think of what utility piece they could send the other way here. I don't think Luis Arias would work. Let's just keep it a straight Cease for Casey deal here. Again, controllable outfielder. Alcantara is another one that they have interest, or that they're dangling here, but they want to trade one of those guys, not two. So I'd say Casey, the more valuable piece, goes to the Padres. Then I think you're going to go look, in the bargain bin here to kind of throw them a bone, prospect-wise. Say you throw them Cabada. Trying to find a cheap starting pitcher that's young here. 22-year-old starting pitcher, Gallagher. Nah. Let's go page 4 again just to see if there's a better one. Catcher, outfielder, starter. Nobody else in that range, really. Let's say they go another young shortstop just to kind of round it out. That would be a deal I'd say the Padres say yes to. If I'm the Cubs, I say yes to this as well. Padres better stay away from Casey. We'll see. Wow, we got a few new people in. Welcome back, Aiden. I'm so woke. Cruz, appreciate you guys joining us. O'Neill Cruz on Yankees would be nice. True. I still want Suarez for the Yankees. I would prefer him over Cruz, honestly, right now. I think the price will be lower, obviously, than Cruz because of the control, all those kinds of things. But Suarez, I think, would have the better impact on this season than Cruz. I think the better long-term effect would be Cruz, but I think Suarez has the better impact this season. I would like Texas to sell and buy and have extra starters. They already have extra starters, but there are rumors that they are one of the teams that's kicking the tires on Dylan Cease. I doubt they make a move for that. I think they're looking for a reliever more than anything else. And I think they're looking for a bat. And I think they're going to go big on both of those options, or at least try to go big and see if they can get it done. Cruz for Volpe straight up. That's not going to happen. Not that I don't think that the value is there or whatnot. We'll get into the value here in just a minute. I mean, if the Pirates are trading O'Neill Cruz, they're doing it to break up that value among a couple of different players. Remember, the coach has already been fired. GMs are usually right out the door after them. Sherrington is on a hot seat. He's going to have to do really well here at the deadline, but we shall see what happens. You're saying trade one of the starters for a bat? I don't think they really have to. I think they have plenty of options in the minors to where they could get any deal they want with their minor leagues, with their minor league pieces. Can't trade Jones or Lombard for Suarez. No go on that. Absolutely. I think the Diamondbacks are holding out until the very last minute, or at least until Sunday, to see if they can get the Yankees to give up Jones for Suarez. It's not going to happen, and I think when they finally understand that, that's when we'll get some traction with the Yankees as far as the deal getting done. Padres better stay with Casey. Chris Sale to the Padres after they trade Cease. I doubt it. I think they would go for a controllable starter with, if whatever pieces they get extra here, flip them on into another piece if they can. But Sale would be a lower cost addition that they could make. But I think the Braves would rather hold on to him, going into next year and just see if they can make a nice run at it with Chris Sale next season. But I wouldn't rule it out of the question if they get an overwhelming offer for Chris Sale's services in Atlanta. Giants need another starter and another bat. Zach Eflin and Adley Rutschman give Baltimore some of the bullpen pieces and a pitching prospect, Wisdom Hunter Black. Adley Rutschman trades, I'm going to reserve those for the offseason. I don't think during the season is really a good option for them to contemplate the future of Adley Rutschman. He has the ability, when he's right, to be an MVP candidate. He's that type of difference maker, but his offense has really regressed since the All-Star break in 2023, much like Jonah Heim. And if this is the type of player he's actually going to be, obviously not exactly a difference-making piece. But, if he's able to find that offensive potential once again, he could certainly be a difference maker for any team who ultimately adds him. Eflin, I do agree that the Giants should be adding some depth pieces to that pitching staff. He would be a nice one. Orioles have several different low-end starters that they could move, some decent bullpen arms that they could move. That'd be a decent move that I could see them making, going to the Orioles and adding quantity of pitching here to kind of supplement the losses they took when bringing in Rafi Devers, trading away a couple of guys off their big league roster. They need to backfill those spots, and I think they will do so here at the deadline. But welcome in, Brian. Appreciate you joining us. Got about 35 of you guys with us right now. Make sure you guys join us every single evening around 9:45 after most of the games are over. We will try to go live every single night, bringing you the latest from the MLB trade deadline. And on trade deadline day, we're going to be live 8 a.m. Central. We're going to go to probably 6:30 Central p.m. So we're going to be on the air for around 12 hours, 11 to 12 hours. But should be a very active day as far as trades. Hopefully we get some more big trades in the next couple of days, because that's usually when they do happen. You aren't going to see any of these franchise-altering moves on deadline day. It's going to be a lot of smaller moves. It's going to be a lot of rentals. Might be guys with 1 year left of control on their deal, like a Taylor Ward. But that's the kind of deals we could probably expect on deadline day. But the bigger deals, the ones where we're talking, Cabrera, Keller, pieces like that, Joe Ryan, those are the deals I expect to happen in advance of the deadline. So make sure you keep it tuned here to the upside. Turn on those notifications. Hit that thumbs up at the bottom of the video. It goes a long way to helping us out. I really do appreciate it. Let's see here. Casey needs to be a Royal. I think he'd be incredible in the Kansas City Royals lineup. Bobby Witt needs another running mate there. But let's go ahead and do that trade idea that you mentioned there. O'Neal Cruz for Volpe, just to kind of see how close that deal would actually be. All right, Cruz, 33, got 3 years left of control after this. Not a huge price, honestly. A little bit surprised. I don't think would you have to do Lombard? You're going to have to bowl them over. So you're talking a big trade asset. But if you did Volpe straight up, the value just isn't quite there. But if you threw Jones in this deal with Volpe, I just can't see Cruz going back to shortstop for the Yankees. I think he's probably going to the corner if they do trade him. So if they move him to the corner, that would mean Jason Dominguez, perhaps. Spencer Jones, perhaps, and a Schlitter to round out the deal. That would be an overwhelming offer. Take out Schlitter, throw in, who's the other catcher? Perez. If you're the Yankees, do you give up Dominguez, Jones, and Perez for Cruz? I would not do that. But that probably would be the deal that Pittsburgh is looking for here at the deadline for Cruz. So kind of keep that in mind if you're trying to bring in O'Neal Cruz. This is probably the package you'd have to do in order to get it done. Ethan, if the Padres Rangers did that mock trade earlier, they could package Rosario for Sandy from the Marlins. I don't want Sandy Alcantara. he had a nice start for the first time in a long time, but one start does not a season make. And I'm not buying Sandy Alcantara here at the deadline if I'm any of these teams. The only one that it would make sense for is the Dodgers, but that's because they have a good track record of rehabbing these pitchers and getting them back to being the types of pitchers or being at their best ability. And I think he'd be a good candidate for the Dodgers somewhere down the line. All right, let's do some actual trades that I think could happen here at the deadline. We already did the Taylor Ward one to the Rangers, but I want to go back to the bullpen again for the Rangers. We've talked about Bednar, we've talked about Duran, we've talked about Jax, Clase a little bit. One other piece, to me, is still Kenley Jansen. Not an overly sexy name, but I think he'd be a nice addition. Negative 1.5, but you could probably throw in a couple of small pieces. Maybe some money going back to the Rangers to offset the cost here. I'd still rather have Bednar, but if the prices get too high, then I think you go back to this well here. Ahmed just retired, by the way, so ignore that one. You could offload Jonah Heim in this deal. What would it cost for their catchers? Trying to remember how much they do. Oh, Hoppy's got to be high value, 13.3. That makes sense. Travis d'Arnaud as a backup catcher makes a bit of money here, but could be an interesting piece. Say the Angels end up sending, I don't know, $8 million to Texas. Your prospect that you're looking for, you send Jonah Heim the other way. The prospect that you would get, I would say probably one of these high A pitching prospects that aren't quite to double A yet. Tiger, Scarborough. Is it going to load? There it goes. Scarborough makes some sense here. Corniel makes some sense here. He's at double A and really pushing there, or shoving there too. I think you could do Scarborough in this deal, Jonah Heim. $8 million to Texas. Maybe a very low cost prospect here. Just to round it out. I don't know, Ian Moeller. Cooper Johnson, he's at AAA. Just a small piece. Something like that. That would get you your closer, get you a little bit better backup catcher in d'Arnaud. Not bad. Padres would get Sandy. I think they could utilize him. I mean, they're using a lot of older veterans anyway. They think they're better than the Dodgers at everything they do, so that kind of makes some sense. As far as their own organizational challenges. How much salary can the Rangers afford to pay to add to this payroll this week? Well, $8 million is roughly the number we're looking at right now. Most of these guys have had most of their salaries already paid down. So, for instance, Duran only has about a $2 million tax commitment left this season. Obviously, with a couple more years of control, got to factor that in for future years as far as money that's coming in. But as far as right now, Duran's only worth about has about $2 million of tax obligation left. The site that kind of helps you with that, Ethan, in case you're wondering, let me go ahead and update this since time has changed. Reset the teams. Rangers. I want to do Pittsburgh here just to see how much Bednar's got left. So Pittsburgh, for instance, he's got a year and a half left on his deal for Bednar, but the commitment this year for Bednar would only be 2.125. As far as tax space, they have 7.5 right now, according to Spotrac. But of course, you still have to factor in, bonuses and that kind of thing that are coming. So, I would say they probably try to keep that number pretty low here, if they can. So, for instance, if they could get the Pirates here to pay down on Bednar, maybe they increase the prospect return for the Pirates because they want to stay underneath that tax threshold by any means necessary right now at the deadline, and go out there in free agency next year and try to add to this roster. This site allows you to actually retain the salary. Only a few $100,000 left commitment there. And then another 6.1, 6.2 left next year. What is Osuna owed? Passan is locked in and said Naylor to Seattle. I mean, they were one of the two favorites for him. Texas was seen as one of them. The other one was the Seattle Mariners. The third team distant there was the Padres for him. But you asked, what is Osuna owed? We've done a lot of the Braves, but we can do another one here. Braves, he is owed 5.3. So the Rangers would have about $2 million left, and with bonuses, they would probably exceed the tax, so they'd have to have Atlanta pay down a little bit of that deal to get a deal done here at the deadline. Appreciate you guys joining us. If you guys are new here, be sure to join us every single night around 9:45. We'll bring you the latest from the deadline. Posted 5 videos today, so make sure you guys have your notifications turned on. Follow us on X at UpsideSN, Facebook Upside Sports Network, and stay up to date with all the latest from the trade deadline. Let's check out X and see if anything is happening at the moment. Quiet night for baseball. Not too many games this evening. Mariners have taken the lead against the Angels 4-2. Guardians lose at home to the Orioles. Detroit continues to struggle pitching and hitting, scoring 3 in the 9th late. They lose 11-4. Blue Jays keep on rolling. Both veteran pitchers there struggled in that game, Padres and Cardinals. Gray was not good. Darvish was absolutely terrible today. His ERA balloons to over 9. And then the A's played a great game. Mason Miller got his 20th save. And again, I'm expecting Mason Miller to be moved. Ozuna said he, in a recent interview, got fully healthy and feels really good to be traded. True, but remember he was sat down for 4 games. That's part of the reason why he probably feels a lot better, that he feels healthier. But even still, he's not hitting even when he said he's feeling healthier. I mean, he sat out those 4 games recently. Let me pull up the game logs here. He just came back into the lineup on Sunday, or was that yesterday? I was watching the game. Let me see here. Yeah, they gave him off. There, they gave him another stretch of games off there. All-Star break in there as well. So he had plenty of time off, but again, one at bat. Struck out in both of those. He's hitting 135 in July. Power numbers, 324 slug. Let me move my chair so you guys can see this real quick. Look at those numbers for July. Those numbers right there. Right here. I want no part of any of those numbers right now. But he could, change of scenery. He'll be better. I'm not buying it. I think he's gotten to the point where I'm not going to say washed. I think it's too early to say that. But the days of him being a productive hitter at the level of, say, like a 300 hitter, I think those days are gone. Now look at his numbers last year. Obviously much better. Let me scroll all the way back up and go back to career. Look at his numbers last year. 302 average. That's an incredible year. That's a fantastic year. Played all 162. You look at the years prior, though. 213, 226, 274. Last year, 302. Looks like he was building and building and building, right? Well, remember how things ended in Miami. Things started out around a 260 hitter. Had a really great year, moved on to St. Louis, and then ended up kind of floundering around a little bit at the end of his time there in St. Louis. I think he was on the minor league team for the Rangers in the 2019 season, 2020 season, the COVID year after that. Then you had the Atlanta Braves pick him up. Played really well in a very small sample size. The next year, only 48 games. I think that was the COVID year where they only played 60 total. Tough to get anybody going in that season. He's just not having a good year, and the trend lines are just down. Third in MVP 6 months ago, buddy? Yeah, that was last season. I'm looking for players that trends line are going up. I want somebody who's got a positional advantage, a platoon advantage at the very least. And Osuna really does not, and you having to commit 2 DH spots is an even bigger concern from a roster construction standpoint. So if I'm looking for a hitter that's available here at the deadline, let's go ahead and expand this to all teams and update this again real quick. Last 30 days, who's got the most hits? Rangers need an on-base guy. Nick Kurtz, by the way, is absolute beast right now. Boy, oh boy, is he good. 9 home runs, 12 doubles. Had a couple of doubles in the game today against the Astros. Man, that kid can hit. All right, let's see here. Chandler Simpson's having a great season for the Tampa Bay Rays. Luis Arraez could be one of the first pieces that you look to as a possibility to be moved. Stowers. Let's look at the on-base percentage. Stowers right up there at the top. Josh Bell is a trade candidate. I'd rather have Josh Bell 18 times more than I'd rather have Marcell Osuna. Doesn't exactly solve your lefty issue. But if Jock Peterson can't come back, that could be a low-cost option. Kind of another Rowdy Tellez type of a player, but having a much better year. Let's keep on going here, see if anything else kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. Taylor Ward, right at the top of this list as well. Number 17 in the game over the last 30. 303 average, a 562 slug in that same period of time in the last 30. 186 average, a 314 slug. And he can still play a defensive position. Mike Tauchman is another one I kind of like, but I'm not sure he really fits the need for the Rangers, though. I think he's going to be a good ad for somebody, so keep an eye on him wherever he goes. Yandy Diaz, the one we've talked about quite a bit as well. Going to have to overpay a little bit, probably give up Cole Drake, maybe another piece as well. But I think those are the bigger options, much bigger options at the deadline than Marcell Osuna. I think if they can't get these options and are left with literally nothing else with seconds left on the clock, that's when you send in the deal for Osuna, but not before then. Because if things don't work out with Osuna, by the end of September, we could easily see them DFA him. Whereas if things aren't working out with Yandy Diaz at that point, I don't think there's any world that Yandy Diaz would be DFA'd by the Rangers. Osuna, I can't say the same for. Let's go to page 2 here. Just going to kind of look at the top part of this chart, and then we'll go to the slugging. Carlos Correa is picking things up if Minnesota's looking to offload his salary. He could be a nice piece, but the power numbers aren't quite there. Average is there, though. Buxton, I'd love to get my hands on Buxton, but he ain't going anywhere. Jarren Duran, 237 average is kind of low for him, but he's another great player. Luis Arraez, 305 average, a 359 on base. He doesn't really walk much, doesn't really strike out at all. Ramon Laureano, another good piece, kind of in that same Taylor Ward kind of a category. Kind of a cheaper version of Taylor Ward. I'd rather go for Ramon Laureano than I would Marcell Ozuna. Let's go back to page 1 and let's look at slug. Rangers were looking for slug this offseason. None of it's really come through. Berger hasn't performed. Peterson hasn't performed. Until recently, Higashioka hadn't performed. So if they want to go slug, of course you have Eugenio Suarez out there. We haven't done one of the Rangers trades for Eugenio Suarez yet. Let's do one of those. Correa to play third for Texas. That's kind of what I was thinking. High on base guy. Mark, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. Manuel, appreciate you joining us as well. Yankees should trade for the Twins, Castro and Chris Paddock. I would love Castro for the Yankees. Paddock, I think they can do much better than. Paddock has not pitched overly great in recent games. But you're saying Texas needs to respond to the Mariners? I absolutely agree. But I wouldn't do just a small move like Marcell Ozuna. I'm looking big game. I'm looking for Matt Olson, Yandy Diaz. I'm looking for, Kyle Stowers. Big pieces. Eugenio Suarez is one player that hasn't been connected to the Rangers recently, but with Josh Naylor now off the market, Josh Young probably plays third base. You probably put Suarez in there as DH. You're going to have to overpay, and overpay quite a bit. $8.1, honestly, that's fairly accurate for what his value is. So to overpay, you're probably looking around 13 mil valuation, maybe 12. $13 or 12. You're not sending Rosario in this deal. You're not sending Castro or anybody like that. Cole Drake would probably be the first piece. They need offense, or they need pitching first. And then, where do you go? 4 or 5 million piece. Maybe you double up on pitching and give him Santos. Would that get it done compared to what the Yankees are going to throw out there, or the Mariners? You're giving up the future of Cole Drake for a half season of Suarez, and I don't think they re-sign him either. That might be as high as I go if I'm a Rangers fan or in the Rangers front office, because I think there'd be better pieces that better fit the time right now for the Rangers. We can do that trade for you, Ethan. We've actually done this trade before. Let's say we go to the Twins, Rangers, Twins, send Correa. His negative value is actually dropped by 6. That's good. Rangers send Peterson in this deal. I think the Twins could send, I don't know, $10 million to the Rangers for taking on the salary of Peterson. They don't have to include as much money. But now what do the Rangers give up in this deal? You're not getting Rosario. Foscue, Duran, you could throw in there from a roster cleaning standpoint. If you combined it with Duran, it would make some sense, but I don't see the Twins decreasing the value of Duran to get off the contract of Correa. And I just don't see them being willing to move on from Joe Ryan. Having that attached as a second piece, I think would give a huge return still to the Twins and not offset the return too much, whereas the relievers don't have nearly as high of a value as Ryan. So it's tough to work out a deal without including Joe Ryan in this deal, and I just don't think it would come to fruition. But you could throw Duran and Foscue in this deal. Would I do that at all if I'm the Twins? No. I'd rather hold on to Correa. Let him rehab his value a little bit more in the second half, and then he's maybe a negative $10 million player by the end of the season. If I'm Texas, I would rather keep Drake and trade Bratt. Bratt's a little further away, but Drake's going to be the guy that's close to the big leagues that teams are going to want to ask about. He's already proven at the AA level. Bratt is beginning there, if I remember correctly. Banana, sorry I wasn't here earlier. What is your thoughts on the Naylor trade? Posted a video already on that subject on our channel. Be sure to check that one out as well. But I love the trade for the Seattle Mariners. They solve a big need over there at first base and kind of kick off the trade deadline season. All they gave up was the number 13 and 16 prospects in their system, a AAA bullpen guy who can immediately fill in the back end for the Diamondbacks, and then a high A starting pitcher, 21 years old, who has a 5.5 ERA. Not seen as a great future asset, but two pieces obviously the Diamondbacks seem to covet out of the Mariners system. And I wonder if this kind of takes the Mariners down a peg here in the Suarez sweepstakes on the national media side. For me, I still think it's Yankees or bust for where he ultimately ends up. Welcome in, Dan. How we doing? Appreciate you joining us. First time being here. Got about 30 people with us right now. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. We're going to be live every single night bringing you the latest from the MLB trade deadline. We'll be live on trade deadline day from 8 a.m. all the way through the deadline till 6:30 in the afternoon. So be sure to join us on trade deadline day for all the latest coverage. Mark, how much would Texas give up to Estevez to close from Kansas City? Maybe you have his name wrong. No, you have his name pretty much right there. He's not having a good year. He's blown 6 or 7 saves so far. I'm sure Kansas City would love to offload his money. I just don't see Texas going after it. They already have a better closer right now on their hands in Garcia than they do in Estevez. If he could figure things out, that might be a different question. But as of right now, they're looking for proven guys who are having good years. I think the Rangers are a pretty solid team, pretty good team, especially on the pitching side. They just kind of need to solve their issues in the ninth just a little bit better. Bringing in a Bednar still seems to be like the most likely move. But Estevez would not be one of the answers I'd see them going for. That, and of course, they need to add a bat, in my opinion. Ethan, Dreiling might be a prospect San Diego would love. Yes, but they're looking for a controllable piece that immediately starts on their team right now. Owen Casey for the Cubs fits that description. Dreiling does not, if you're wondering about that for a Dylan Cease trade. Dan, did you see the Cards pushing hard to trade Nolan? What could work? I do believe the Cardinals will try to trade Nolan Arenado. They need to get off of his salary. They need to free up some roster flexibility here. What could I see as a deal that works? There's a couple of teams. With the injury to Paredes, I'm sure the Astros rumors will kick up again. And in fact, let's start there. They do need more offense. He's having a decent year. He's WAR this year is round of 1. I was watching a little bit of that game today with the Padres. He's an okay piece at this point in his career. Let's go to the negative side of things. Arenado in 27. So I think the Cardinals are going to have to eat roughly $20 million of this deal to make it worth it. Maybe 25 to the Stros. Basically eats the entirety of this year's deal, next year a little bit, and then he's basically paying a year and a half for Nolan Arenado. Now, what would you give up? You're sending $25 million along with it just for him to not play on your team? Well, you could send him McCormick back, but that doesn't really fit with that team. Glenn Otto is now on this team. I did not know that. That's interesting. Let's see here. Alexander got the start today. Did not look very good. JP France. Oof. Wisniewski. Couple of lottery tickets first. And then a bigger piece. But not too big, obviously. Tramel's finally finding his home. You could do Brito as your big piece that you're bringing in if you're St. Louis. You need starting pitching. Maybe throw in another prospect just to kind of round out the deal. But what does the site think here? Moderate overpay? That's not a bad deal if you're the Cardinals. You offload the contract, you offload the salary, free up the roster space. You might even be able to get away with giving up, less money in that deal. J.J. Weatherholt needs to be called up. Absolutely, he does, Dan. I don't think he's too far away. Mets trade Acuna, Beatty, and Alvarez to the Orioles for Bautista and Urias. Remember, Bautista just went on the IL with left shoulder discomfort. He will not be traded at this deadline. Sorry, Manuel, he is not going to move. Bautista is on the IL. Urias would be a nice piece, but you're not giving up all of that for Bautista, who's injured right now either. Jarren Duran package to the Royals. We could do that one. We'll do one more trade after this. So send us your trade ideas. We'll pick one out of the group and save the rest for tomorrow night. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. If you guys just joined us late in the video, we are going to be live every single evening around 9:45. We do post a few shorts every single day, keeping you guys updated on the latest from the deadline. Thank you for those. Appreciate that. All right, let's do that trade. Royals and Red Sox. Royals are looking for offense any way they can get it. Red Sox. Royals. Red Sox trade Duran. Page 1. 48. They've increased his value a little bit. Royals, you're going to have to equal probably 53 here to make sense. You're not giving up Ragans, that's for sure. Bubic could be the piece that goes. Red Sox would be a buyer here. I would really like that deal already if I'm the Red Sox. I'd be close on this. Okay, so what would make the rest of this deal make sense? A bullpen arm like Ursig. Honestly, that would be darn close. For that return, though, I think that the Royals could do better for Bubic and Ursig. Let's say they went the prospect route instead of doing major leaguers. What could they do? Give up one of their catchers. You already have Witt. Ricardo probably would be the guy that would replace Witt if he does leave in free agency at the end of the deal. You're still not close, though. So you throw in Shields. Gets you in the ballpark. I still wouldn't do that deal if I'm the Royals. But if I'm the Red Sox, I would love the Bubic and Ursig portion of that. Now, if you could just get Bubic out of it, give up prospects if you're the Red Sox instead of Duran, that would be a better trade. Mark, Texas needs one bat and one bullpen arm, and they are serious World Series contenders if no injuries. I agree with that sentiment completely there, Mark. I mean, if they say they go a little bit cheaper and bring in David Bednar, that's a reasonable target for them to try to acquire, and they've been looking at him for 2 years. They've been talking about this deal for 2 years. They already know what the asking price is likely going to be for Bednar at the deadline here. I think they could easily be, kind of the team with the inside track on David Bednar. As far as a hitter goes, I think that's going to be a little tougher. I would love Taylor Ward. I would love a guy like Yandy Diaz. I prefer Diaz out of the two. Of course, you want to go big game hunting here. Matt Olson, something like that. I doubt that happens. But Ward, Diaz, those would be the guys I'd be targeting. Stephen Kwan, I think, could be a nice piece. I think the Phillies and Padres are the two teams that have been mentioned as trying to bring him into town. But the Padres don't have the prospect capital to get it done. Even if they did trade away Cease and some other veterans on the roster, they just couldn't get there reasonably. But Kwan to the Phillies makes some sense. They have the prospect capital to do it. A GM that's absolutely all about winning and winning at any cost. He's not, the heck with the prospects. Stephen Kwan to Texas. We could do that one as well. I think we actually did that one last night. What is Kwan's value up to? 49 now. Okay, so it went up as well. All right, so in this deal, you'd probably have to give up Rosario. You're not going to get it with lower level pieces, so you'd have to include Walcott or Langford. You send Langford. Maybe you get Clase involved in this deal, make it a mega deal. You send Rosario. You send somebody who's actually having a good year in Cole Drake. How close are you there? 87, and then you throw in another piece like Dreiling, who's starting to figure things out offensively as a second-round pick. Would I do that if I'm the Rangers? Probably not. I'd rather have the future of Langford than Kwan. And I'm still giving up more in Drake and Dreiling as well. Now, the upgrade in the bullpen, that would be where you're kind of going, hey, okay, the future of Langford versus a couple of years with Kwan and having Emmanuel Clase lock games down for us right now. I still say no on that deal as well. Dan, if the Twins are selling, maybe Bader time? Yes. We've done several Harrison Bader trades, dating back to the last week and a half, and any number of teams could be a fit for him. He's had a nice year, good right-handed bat, hits lefty pitching well, great defender. Glove work has always been his calling card. But this year, the offense is starting to come through. He could command a decent return in a trade here at the deadline. Is Lugo still negative on there? I think he's right around 0 still. Oh, they've actually increased his value now, up to 3.5. About time they start recognizing the performance that he's been doing this year. So you could get a decent piece in return. You could probably get the Josh Naylor trade in exchange for Seth Lugo, maybe a little bit better return than what Naylor got for the Diamondbacks. Yankees trade Stanton and pay his deal. I don't really see that happening, but let's check out X just to make sure nothing is happening right now. Ethan, thank you for following. Saw you found my Twitter there. You can find the list page and find the baseball page if you're interested in the list of Twitter feeds that I do follow. Ryan Helsley expects to be traded. That's the kind of headlines you like to see here at the deadline. Definitive actions. Rumors are one thing. Actual intelligence on these things is another. And if he's already feeling that he's going to be traded from that organization, we already knew he was probably going to move anyway. But if the player's already feeling it, that means you're probably closer to a deal than not. Let's see, is there any other A's possibilities? Rooker's staying, obviously. Kurtz is going to be a fantastic player. He's going to be a top 5 offensive player as soon as next year. Honestly, I think he's probably a top 5 offensive player by September. He is that great. Now, Soderstrom, he could be a piece that's moved in the offseason because he is playing out of position in left. He's probably best as a first baseman. Random thought just occurred to me. Random. I think this is probably a trade that happens in the offseason, but if they did it at the deadline, Rangers have been looking for a first baseman for a while. 4 years left on control. They're looking for starters. You send Drake, you send DeVio as kind of your first two pieces. You still need another 10. So instead of including DeVio, you include Rosario. Now you're getting close to a deal. Send him an outfielder that has some potential, maybe a Dreiling. It's an overpay, don't get me wrong, but he becomes your first baseman. I would love that if I'm the Rangers. 4 years of control. This has shades of Matt Olson on it. He's not as good as Matt Olson, but offensively he's still a young player and ascending. Certainly not as good as Kurtz, but that's why he's playing out of position, because Kurtz is the better player. How high is Kurtz's value? 48? Get out of here with that. That value, right now, even without an extension, should be at least a 60. I get I'm high on Nick Kurtz, but come on, that's criminally low. Let's get a little crazy with it. Say they do Mason Miller in this deal. Get the closer there. You take out Rosario, you take out Dreiling. You leave Drake in there because they need a starting pitcher for the future. You're at 53. Anybody else have any real... I think Rooker will be moved eventually. Just not this year, next year, or the year after. Nobody else really fits for them to move here. Urias will be moved. That'd be a nice piece for them to move. Geloff, he's basically lost his spot now. I could see them moving him. J.P. Sears is said to be available at the deadline. I don't think that would fit as a trade, though. I don't think you could get Miller. I was trying to see if you could do enough to make it worth including Langford and sending Soderstrom, Miller, and maybe another piece for Langford, Drake, and another piece. But the value is just not there from the A's side to make it worth it for the Rangers. So if you did Soderstrom for Drake, Rosario, and Dreiling, or Drake, Rosario, and Osuna, Kurtz is the best first baseman in baseball. Freeman still is pretty dang good, but I'd say Kurtz is probably better already from what he's actually shown. Helsley would be an easy deal for Texas to make, and I believe they re-sign him. That would be the hard part. I do think he'd be a great closer for the Rangers, especially as a low-cost option. But my money is still on Bednar to end up in Texas. But Soderstrom would be an interesting piece at the deadline here. Suarez's market, still pretty much the same. Everybody trying to outbid each other, which is exactly what you want if you're the Diamondbacks right now. Last check on X to see if anything else is going. 104.1 to Cam Smith, and he just missed with it. Dang. He is cranking it up there. Wow. Sorry, I'm trying to watch that pitch a little closer. It's got hair on it, too. A little bit of movement. They're classifying it as a slider because it is kind of tailing away from the hitter. But dang, that's a good pitch. Stanton for Jock deal, never going to happen. Yankees would rather hold on to Stanton. Yankees eat the deal. I know as much as Jock Peterson hasn't performed for Texas, that most Ranger fans would love to find a way to offload his salary. It's just not going to happen. He's going to be stuck on the Rangers roster. You just hope he has a strong second half and figures things out. And next year he's a better asset for you. But as of right now, he's pretty much going to stay on the roster. Melton's coming on strong. Christian Javier, rehab outing, 2 2/3. Pardon me. Astros getting some reinforcements soon. Last thing I want to check in on is the standings before we head out for the evening. There was only a few games this evening. I think there was only 5 total. So there weren't really a lot of changes. Seattle, I think they ended up winning, right? They did, 4-2. Astros ended up losing. So the Mariners now are up a half a game in the AL wildcard, 7-3 in their last 10. They're playing some good baseball, and now they bring in Josh Naylor. That's your little brother? That would be pretty cool. All right. Thank you guys for joining us this evening. We'll be live again tomorrow night around 9:45. Watch a couple of videos that we got coming out for you guys tomorrow as well. Should be an interesting day with a lot of baseball games, a lot of good baseball. And let us know in the comment section of some of these videos when we post them, some of your trade ideas, and we'll try to go through them in the evening as well. But thank you guys for making this a fun day of another great day of baseball. Only 5 games on the slate, but we get our first trade of the deadline season with Josh Naylor heading to the Seattle Mariners for basically the 13 and 16 prospects, according to MLB Pipeline, in their system, a AAA reliever and a high A starting pitcher with a 5 ERA. But it's been a great day of baseball anyway. Kingston, welcome in. Hadn't seen you yet today, but I appreciate you joining us once again. Got about 28 of you guys with us before we head out. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Mitch Keller and Caleb Ferguson for Tiedemann and 2 other top 10 prospects from the Jays. Ooh, I'd rather have Yesevich, but if you did Tiedemann, they're very similarly valued. I'd rather have Yesevich out of the 2, though, by far. Let's go ahead and do that trade. That'll kind of be the last one we do there. Blue Jays, Pirates. And Ferguson. So our value is 31.3. Going to probably need around 38, 39 to get this deal done. So you're saying, let's see here, all. Tiedemann is only 13. Ouch. You're going to need to do better. Kasevich, I don't really see that fitting, but okay. Alan Roden, I suppose. Looper Fido. That's not bad. I think they would much rather have this package, though. I think they'd much rather do Namala and Yesevich straight up and call it a deal right there. Stanton at -50. Ouch. I think that's a legitimate deal we could see here at the deadline. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. We're going to go ahead and head out for the evening. Got a long day of work tomorrow. We'll have a few videos popping out for you guys tomorrow as well. Get off of work, watch some baseball, go over the rumors, and then we'll have our live tomorrow at 9:45. If anything does break, we'll try to have a video out as quickly as we can afterward. To make sure you guys stay up to date on all the latest from the deadline. So be sure to hit that like, subscribe, follow us on X at Upside Ascend, and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network as well. Make sure you turn on your notifications as well. You're asking what the value is for Stanton? I can check it for you real quick. His value is Negative 37.9, so about 20 worse than Jock Peterson. See it above my head? Right there. All right. Y'all stay safe out there. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night. Thank you guys for joining us for another great day of baseball coverage. And hopefully we get another trade tomorrow. I predicted we'd get one today. I think the market's going to reset around kind of the rental guys, around Naylor's value. Do I think we could see a trade tomorrow? I do. But I'm less certain than I was about today's trade. So I think the market might wait until Saturday for the next one. But I wouldn't be surprised if we got another one, that this was the first of a couple of smaller deals that get the bigger ones going. But we shall see. Thank you guys for joining us. Stay safe. We'll see you guys tomorrow.